Brain box.
What is the worst date you've ever had? I met a guy at a bar one night, gave him my number and we start talking immediately. I had just moved to this town which he knew, so he said he wanted to take me to dinner about a week after our first meeting. He said he was taking me to his favorite little restaurant in X. I was excited, got ready looking nice, and he picked me up. I still had no idea where we were going, but the way he was talking I was expecting somewhere nice and quaint. As we were driving I noticed where we were heading. The mall. I kept a positive attitude while still knowing all the restaurants attached to the mall were big chains. No big deal I thought as we pulled in and parked. Then I realized where exactly we were going. Dave & Buster's. I'd have no problem with this, except I was dressed like we were going to a nice place in the city, and when he was texting me about it in no way did he allude to a place like this. We go in and sit down and immediately he starts pushing me to order from the 2 for $20 menu or whatever is comparable at D&B's and literally says I'm using my mom's card to pay for dinner, so we can't go crazy. That's when I knew this night wasn't going to go well. We order and he never gives me a chance to speak and is going on and on about his bipolar disorder and how therapy is going. Now, I have no issue with mental health problems, I suffer with anxiety myself, but on a first date, and having that be the first thing we talk about after we order? I was just dreaming of when I could go home. We eat and play a couple games. He proceeded to tell me how awful I was at all of them, multiple times, and finally I asked to be taken home. When he drops me off he turned the car off and got out of the car with me. Thinking he was just walking me to the door I told him it wasn't necessary, but he still was walking with me. I said goodnight and opened the door and he tried to walk into my place. I asked what he was doing and he said because he bought my dinner he should be asked in. I told him that technically his mother bought my dinner, so if she would like to come over, she was welcome anytime. I closed and locked the door, blocked his number, and haven't heard or seen him since. The one and only date I ever walked out on in the middle of it. I met up with this guy for dinner for a first date, and it was so ridiculous that I wondered whether I was being pranked. After we sit down he begins to boast about how much money he makes, telling me he has a sweatshop in Bangladesh that manufactures cheap clothes for Walmart. Worker exploitation is not a turn on for me, but I didn't say anything since I just met him and didn't want to talk politics. But I guess he could tell I wasn't impressed because he compliments me saying, well, let's leave politics aside. I'm glad you came out, you're hot and I like that you're white. Blacks and Asians and all the others don't do it for me. I say that racism isn't less political nor any more attractive of a quality. He says he isn't racist and to demonstrate this fact, he proceeds to point out all the non-white women he'd fuck in the restaurant. For instance, the black one over there, even though she's black, is still an 8. I'd do her, just not talk to her, or call her back, or establish any sort of relationship with her. He continues to assess all the women of color for at least 10 minutes. At this point I questioned whether there was a hidden camera or something and this was a prank. But unfortunately nothing of that sort happens. So I tell him to please stop ranking all the women because it makes me uncomfortable. He assures me it's not racist nor sexist to do this, but merely a question of preference. And I should be glad that he's honest with me. To demonstrate his honesty he tells me about his dislike of fat chicks. He then compliments me again, saying that I looked fit. He then cautions me though, saying you ordered a burger. It's great that you think you can ingest all those calories, but a salad can also be filling. Put money down for my meal and left. I don't know if I'd call it my worst, as my worst was pretty typical for a bad date. After being fixed up by someone else, neither of us would have asked the other out. But the most interesting was this one. I met a girl online in a game we both played and hit it off pretty well. We were both older gamers, but not elderly, late 30s, and it seemed we had a lot in common. I drove up to meet her for the weekend, and our date got interrupted by a phone call. Her daughter was in the hospital giving birth to her grandchild. We rushed over, and it turned out the father hadn't arrived and would be delayed for a while. So she asked me to stand in for him as we walked into what I discovered was the delivery room. So I was in the delivery room with her and her sisters, the great aunts to be, while her daughter was giving birth. And I witnessed everything, and boy do I mean everything. After the excitement was over, everyone started congratulating me, and I had to try to explain that I wasn't the father, but his stand-in. At this point nothing left to do but go with the flow. The father arrived, shook my hand, and thanked me for looking after his wife for him. Very odd day indeed. It ended up not working out. I'm now married to someone else, but that's a story for another time. I went on a date with a YouTuber my brother idolizes. I had no idea who he was until my brother showed me his channel. We had a pretty mediocre date. He was nice enough, but kept leading the conversation back to his subscriber count and his fans. When he dropped me off he asked me if he could kiss me. I said yes, and he lunged at my face and suction cupped himself to my eye like one of those tank cleaning fish my dad has. Literally licking my eyelashes and sucking. When I came inside my brother was waiting for me and saw me come in looking like a raccoon with my MacLeod on one eye all over my cheeks. I'll never name him or tell anyone. I don't think anyone deserves to be shamed for a kink, especially with a platform that big. I once was out with a co-worker from work. We had been pretty flirty for a couple months and had told me that she was moving to a new city for school in a week or so, but would really love to have a drink with me before she left. We enjoyed a few drinks and were really hitting it off. Before we knew it, we were the last two people in a bar. I started walking to her car and it got to that I should probably make a move part of the night. As she was fiddling with her keys she said something along the lines of I think people should just go for what they really want if it feels right. I took this as an opportunity to make a joke. I bet rapists feel that way all the time. Awkward. How can I get into my car fast enough because I'm in an empty parking lot with basically a stranger? That one haunts me still 5 years later. Met some guy on a dating app. He didn't have really clear pictures, should have been a red flag, but he was killing it with Roman numeral jokes, so I decided to give it a shot. We met up at a coffee place, and holy shit. He looked almost exactly like someone I knew. Same hair, same eyes, same pale skin, and even the same stutter and twitchy mannerisms. That someone that I knew happened to be an autistic guy. Nothing against autistic people in general, but this particular dude was a piece of work who constantly wore a cape, talked about communism, and stalked me and a friend of mine for a while. Tried to have a pleasant conversation for an hour, then made an excuse and left. He was actually a fairly decent dude, but the resemblance to that guy creeped me the hell out. I usually make it a point not to ghost people, but I'm also not a liar, and there was no way I could reasonably tell him sorry, you look and act exactly like some guy who tried to stalk me once, so it's a no from me. So I ghosted him. I had actually had a date earlier that day as well, and I had tripped on a rock and scraped my hands and knee pretty well, and got stung by a bee on my back like 10 minutes later. It was not a good day. The girl told me she thought I was a douchebag picking her up because I came with my sunroof open. We hung out and she had this awkward look on her face. Like a scared timid look. So I asked her if she thought I was going to kidnap her like WTF. She said actually kinda head up like that awkward laugh. So we push on. We open up a bit and she said she's done with her slut stage and wants to find a person to hang out with and a nice buddy. I get it, some people are different. Then she said she can't wait to turn 18 so she can meet more guys at the bar. Wait, what? Nope. Told her we can drive around some more. Dropped her home. Literally, she said hey, this is my house. Yep, you know what that means. Bye bye 17-year-old WTF. Bye. 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 Going to school this semester, first day of class. First elevator. She's right fucking there looking at me. She said oh, hey. Weird seeing you here. I pretended to not hear her